County Board of Education will come to order. I'd like to ask you to all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment's silence. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. First item on the agenda is Mr. Garland has a special presentation. Mr. Garland.
Will the board please come down with me, please? This is one of the fun parts of being the director for Mid-Cumberland District for the Tennessee School Board Association. I get to do this all across Mid-Cumberland, but I have never been able to, been asked to do it for my board. This will be the last time I will be presenting to my board because I'm coming off of TSBA Board of Directors this year. We've done our time. It's time to move on. Thank you, Chairman Griffith, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Lunavetta. It's my privilege to be here tonight to present you with the TSBA Board of Distinction Award. This award is one of TSB's most prestigious awards. I commend the board for meeting the requirements in 4 key areas: planning, policy, promotion, and board development. As you know, the requirements are extensive and not every board qualifies as a board of distinction. However, this board is among those select few. On behalf of the Tennessee School Board Association, I am proud to present the Board of Distinction Award to the Clarksville-Montgomery County Board of Education. Congratulations.
Looking forward to the completion of the boardroom so we can get those awards on the wall and share them with the public more frequently. Next item on the agenda is public conversation. Public address is how I read it, but public address the board. I think we have one. Mr. Nolan?
Yes. Mr. Lopez?
Hello, my name is AC Big Sarge Lopez. I forgot my script, so now you're just going to get the raw AC today. Back in 1988, a long time ago, as I had a debate instructor, as Mr. Alvarado, is that one of the very, very first things that we learned was that public debate was one of the most important things that you could do as a citizen. You could say that my 23 years in the military service and my 3 combat tours is pretty up there, but when I see that our constitutional rights are being somewhat limited, I can't say what I want to my public officials because there might be an incident that happens at a quicker time as maybe a disagreement of procedures with some of the school officials that I'm concerned that the school board may not be aware of. And so I feel that it's very important that we have the opportunity to speak to our school board members, or duly elected school board members, about any topic that we want within reason, no cursing, no swearing, no naming names or anything like that. I mean, we still got to be civilized. We live in a civilized nation and everything like that. So, in saying that, so I know you have an important vote coming up right now, and I know that all of y'all up there for a reason because y'all really, really give a crap about the students and the people and the community and everything like that. But if you really do care, let us say what we need to say. Let us express our emotions. Let us say that, maybe I was very upset when my grandson was involved in the incident with the school shooting at the stadium, literally 20 feet away. So I spoke about that, but I can't imagine a world where me as legal guardian, grandfather of my grandchild, is not allowed to express my sadness and concern and safety for my own grandchild to my elected officials. So, maybe when some of the administration in some particular schools are weaponizing TLO versus New Jersey, where they can illegally search the students' backpacks at a whim, maybe, we have a chance because you may not know what's going on because unlike our superintendent here, so y'all goes to the cafeteria to look at what the public the students and see what they're doing and their actions. And I know with past directors you were told, don't go to the schools. You're a nuisance or you're a distraction because now these administrators have to look after you and they're not looking after the kid. But I believe with the new leadership right now, I believe that you would welcome people to go to the school, see what the school board members to go to the school, see what our taxpayers dollars are paying for. And that's all I really wanted to say was that we live in a different time. When we went to school, it was totally different. News didn't travel as fast. Reaction wasn't as fast that we could fix them and things like that. And like I said before, I use this in combat all the time. You don't know what you don't know. And if you're not in the schools and if you're not in those schools cafeterias looking at those students, you don't know what you don't know. And maybe if we were in there, or if y'all visited a little bit more often with the encouragement of the director, maybe we'll get these dumb TikTok challenges away from our school system. We'll get our parents and community more involved, because that's what we really want. Is we want more community involvement. Long are the days gone that I couldn't even speak to y'all. There was a rule that said I could not even speak to y'all. And I think that it's very important that we know right now that please give the community the opportunity to speak to our local elected officials. Any questions?
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, approval of consent agenda. Have a motion for Mr. Goff. second from Mr. May, to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Passes 7-0. Next item, policy monitoring. Dr. Lindbetter.
Board, please find in your board packet information on Executive Limitation 8, Commitment to Accomplishment, Accountability, Accreditation, and Reporting to the Public. This executive limitation has one compliance expectation: to ensure the Director of Schools shall not fail to maintain an accountability program. Specifically, CMCSS has a comprehensive strategic planning process which includes Level 1 student achievement and Level 2 department performance data. In addition to this data, administration meets regularly to formally listen to how our performance is perceived by school leaders, stakeholder groups, and department leaders. In Level 1, schools and districts are expected to meet annual measurable objectives identified specifically for the district based on the ESSA baseline built from the previous year's performance. The district is assessed on student performance in 7 areas measured through pathways. Each area, pathways, and action plans are listed in your packet. Furthermore, senior leadership team members design annual strategic work based on changes at the state and national level, as well as feedback from stakeholders at all levels and other district work that needs to be implemented or improved to accomplish these requirements. In conclusion, the district is currently working on high school accreditation updates with Cognia and is due to be completed in spring 2024. In March 2017, the district transferred ISO 9001 certification to Preferred Registrar Group, and the district was recertified May 29, 2018. In fall 2021, CMCSS began the transition to Educational Organizational Auditor ISO 21001-2018 certification and was recently recommended for unconditional approval. Chairman Griffey, that concludes my update for Executive Limitation 8.
Thank you, Dr. Lindbetter. Is there a motion to accept this report? A motion from Mrs. Pace, second from Mr. Patterson. Any discussion? All in favor? Vote passes 7-0. Next item is reports. Dr. Lindbetter.
In your packet, you do have executive order, and just making you aware, the request for authorization was related to the retiree medical insurance contribution. The next item is goal number 12, and I would welcome Chief Communications Officer Anthony Johnson, who will introduce his team to present to you goal 12 on parent engagement.
You turning me on, Lee? Oh, am I? There we go. All right. So this evening, we're excited to share with you Goal 12. This is a collaborative strategic work goal with the Instruction Curriculum Department and the Communications Department. And I'm going to go ahead and call up. So Tina is our Director of Professional Learning, Tina Smith, with the Instruction and Curriculum Department. She'll be presenting with us today, as well as Elizabeth Vincent, our Director of Continuous Improvement, and Jessica Goldberg, our Director of Communications and Marketing. So we'll be co-presenting this today. We're just going to give an overview of some of the work that our schools have been doing this year and how we've been supporting them. But I want to start with a little bit of background. We talked a lot about how the pandemic has affected family engagement, and it certainly did. But we want to make sure that we acknowledge that there's been a decline in family engagement over the last several decades. So there's research going back to the 90s, just talking about the decline in family engagement and the barriers that families have. Some of the big ones being time. Obviously, we're a working blue-collar community, military community. Time is very valuable, and families don't always have a lot of time to be engaged inside the building. Doesn't mean they're not engaged in their child's education necessarily, but the traditional family engagement of coming to each event and things like that. So we have to address time. We have to address transportation, language, all of those different barriers. You all might recall, if you've been on the board for some time, we actually had a grant in collaboration with Christian County Schools and Fort Campbell on family engagement. You might remember Esperanza Prairie. And so for 5 years, we had a family engagement specialist on staff who was supporting schools. And we saw a lot of success from that, but what we ultimately saw, and that was a conversation I had with the former Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Petrus, it wasn't really truly a co-collaboration with the instruction curriculum department and communications. For family engagement, I guess you're turning me up because I'm not talking loud enough. For family engagement to really work, we have to have schools bought in. We have to have schools create welcoming environments. And so tonight we're going to talk about some of that work that we've done. Now I feel like I'm too loud. Some of the work that we've done to support them. So we're going to talk tonight about Better Together. We're going to talk about some of the family engagement programming, social media enhancement, the family engagement pilot that we piloted this year, and then improve family and employee satisfaction. So we're going to start with Better Together. You hear the phrase a lot, tone at the top. And Dr. Lunavetter came in on day one emphasizing that we truly are better together. We're better when parents and guardians are engaged with our teachers and our administrators in children's education. And beyond that, in our wider community, businesses, churches, everyone has a part in making sure our students are achieving. So from day one, Better Together, if you came to our back to school kickoffs with faculty and staff, we had Better Together shirts, had a fun theme really around that. And this next year we'll be continuing to build upon that theme, but it's just important, we want to emphasize that it's tone from the top, day one, that we really are better together. Coming out of what we all have been excited about, our first year that has not been interrupted by anything pandemic related. It's been glorious. So what have schools been doing? We started this year with the principals retreat in July, encouraging every single principal to be working with their teams to make sure that they had family engagement planning for the year. And we saw schools really take off with this year. A lot of exciting events across the board. These are just a few examples of some of the different events that were occurring at our schools to bring parents and guardians in to see, kind of open the door, take back the veil, and see what students are learning. And so you see everything from an example here where they actually had the family engagement night at Publix, and so they had a math night out at the family or out at Publix. And you can see here in the middle, this was kind of it wasn't just academic, but kind of sports related. It's sort of a field day with families, and the last one was kind of a game. So game night. So making sure that it's academically related, but that we're also showing families that our students are having fun while they're at school. So lots of examples. If you're following us on social media, if you're following our schools on social media, you'll see all the different events they've had. So family engagement was a big priority for us, family engagement programming. I wanted to hit, before I turn it over, just a few of the other highlights, and I'm going to hit these kind of quickly. These are either things that you've heard about in another report, things we've been doing for several years, but with a refined focus. So we have a parent advisory council. Dr. Huff leads the parent advisory council. We have representatives from each school. And they meet on a monthly basis. They get to hear updates about what's occurring in the school district, and really most importantly, they also get to provide feedback that we can hear, and we can come together and create solutions to improve our education. So it's really great. Dr. Huff has some plans next year to continue to refine that council. We've had a parent advisory council for about 10 years. The CMCSS Learning Centers, right over here behind Moore, you've probably seen that White House. That's one of our learning centers, and we also have one at Minglewood Elementary School. These are resource centers. If you've never been to one, you can kind of think of it like a public library, but an extension of our school. So there's books there's resources. They do family engagement planning nights where they're doing sessions on helping your student with work, or literacy sessions, even music sessions, different things like that, where families after the school day that extended into the community can attend. So strategically placed here at Moore and then at Minglewood, two different areas of the community. Our Families in Transition program, which if you're not familiar with that program, they serve our students who are facing homelessness. You all know that, the data changes, but we've been as high as nearly 1,000 students who are experiencing homelessness in our schools. So this year, we have seen tremendous growth with our Families in Transition team. They're just a really stellar team who are doing amazing things. And you might have seen some advertising recently. They're having a back-to-school bash at Kenwood Elementary School in a few weeks. And it's not just for our families in transition, it's for everyone. But they serve as a resource for our families who they might need support in finding housing, clothing, food. But they also have an academic counselor on staff with them to support students and ensuring that they have that continuity of education through their transition. With SEL supports, I just wanted to emphasize our social workers. Thanks to your support, thanks to the support of our county commission, over the last 2 years, we've been able to increase our staff of social workers. And the great thing about social workers is they can support students and families in our schools, but they can also support them at home. So we have social workers who are going to homes, we have social workers who are supporting families in the school environment, all that to ensure that families have the resources, the knowledge, and the confidence to be able to support their students in education. Which is a good segue into our Strengthening Families program. You all got to hear about that great program that Mr. Matthew Slight is leading. I encourage you, if you have not read the story yet that Jessica wrote about a father's testimonial of going through this program, I really encourage you to read that story. Basically, Strengthening Families is a 12-week program where our social work staff, our social emotional learning staff, working with other agencies, are helping families to understand how they can support their child better. And when you read the testimonial from the father, I think he essentially says in his own words, it made me a better father. It taught me how to better support my students. So we're continuing to grow that program and look forward to continuing to have success stories with that. I wanted to mention Kirkwood Middle and High School Community Building. So as you all know, and thanks again to you all in the County Commission, we've been able to add a middle school and a high school and soon another elementary school. This year, more so than any other year, we have been very intentional that as the operations department and the contractors build the building, the principals have some time before to build the school, everything else, from the culture to the supports, everything that's in place. And so we've been very impressed as boss at Kirkwood Middle School, Ms. Pard at Kirkwood High School with the work that they have done. Ms. Boss put out a survey to her incoming families before the middle school opened, if anyone was interested in having her even just come to their house and sit down and chat with them. And she had over 100 people so she made 100 house visits out to people to meet them, and then also invited them to the school. And then Ms. Pard has done a tremendous job. I mean, high school's a lot. And so she's been building that over the last year. I know Mr. Mayberry's been able to be out at a couple different sessions where she's had everything from them, the building, what the motto would be. She has a student advisory council, parent advisory council. Again, all of this happening before the school's even built. Because we know from day one to get parent and family engagement, we have to have that buy-in. The other thing I want to mention, just really quickly, 3 other things that we've had in place for several years. Partners in Education is going on close to 20 years that we've had that in place. Right now, it is a partnership between the Chamber of Commerce, the school system, and the Education Foundation. We have over 150 different partners in education, and they partner with schools. Whether it's financial, whether it's volunteer work, or whether it's their talents, working with students and kind of showing them what their careers are. And so we're really grateful to have 150 strong partners. As our community continues to grow, as the needs of our schools and our students continue to grow, we know that program will continue to grow as well. Wanted to mention the Clarksville Montgomery County Education Foundation, 3rd year in a row with historic income that has come in, and then them being able to increase their programming. So this year, a few things that they have done to support that are new. One being the morale grants. So schools were able to apply for morale grants to support faculty and staff morale. But in that, a lot of that had to do with parent and family engagement as well. But of course, they have their great idea grants, their big idea grants, and many of those have actually funded parent and family engagement efforts at the schools. And the last one being leadership CMCSS, which I know you all are familiar with, but just wanted to mention that parents and guardians can also take part in leadership CMCSS, as well as business leaders, civic leaders. And so we had another really great class this year. I know Mr. Mayberry went through last year. Ms. Bledsoe's back there, she went through this year. So we always have a really great opportunity to share more about what's going on in the school system and go ahead and get people engaged, even some before they have students. We had a few this year who got little ones, and they'll have kindergartners here coming up this next year. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Jessica. She's going to talk a little bit about the efforts with social media.
Good evening, board. So social media seems like it's just a small piece of the puzzle, but it really is an important part in family engagement. We traditionally have a lot of different ways that we communicate with our families. We have mass notification systems, used to be School Messenger, it's about to be Parent Square. We have obviously family nights where families can come in and talk to teachers, talk to administration in person. We have our school websites, we have our district website, we have our district social, but social media from a school level is really important to show those families, as Mr. Johnson mentioned, kind of that behind the scenes, pull back the veil curtain of what's happening in our schools on a day-to-day basis. And so one of our goals this year was to increase the number of schools that were operating under the district umbrella, and that being like our business manager under Facebook. Kind of, I mean, if you think like from a big brother sense, we just want to pull everyone in a very like safe and non-creepy way to help them kind of fall into what we think are best practices, making sure they're engaging regularly, making sure their posts are reaching the right audience at the right times, and kind of helping them with the tools and strategies that they need to be able to communicate with their families effectively. And so one of the examples you see here that we have encouraged schools to start doing is show what kind of lessons our students are learning throughout the day. And you can see that this is just a fun science lesson that an elementary class was able to do during the day. And it gives parents just kind of an example of what their child is doing, and then allows them to have those communication or conversations at home about, hey, I saw that you made this project, tell me about it, what's happening. And so it kind of opens up that door to the engagement at home as well. So our goal as we continue into next year is to increase the number of schools that are using social media as another communication tool. We definitely don't want to limit and only be sharing things on social media. We are still going to be using our websites, we're still going to be making phone calls home, sending text messages, using Parent Square. This is just going to be another piece of the puzzle. And I'm happy to say that we actually had 2 schools that created their Facebook pages this past year and have been like gung-ho about it already, super excited. They're posting really great content and they're really energized about getting to have this new tool. And finally, you know, just again, having social media be where we're meeting our families where they are. We know people use social media. We know that's how they get a lot of their news and information. And so we want to make sure that we're there posting content that is true and transparent about what's happening during the school day. And I'll turn it over to Elizabeth and Tina.
Okay, so for the next piece, we're going to look at the family engagement pilot that occurred this school year. So while Mr. Johnson mentioned that all of our schools worked on engaging families more, we had 11 schools that really dug in deeper and engaged in a pilot, a year-long pilot, to really work on family engagement in their buildings. So 11 of our schools, elementary, middle, and high, were involved in this pilot. We started off with the administrators in the buildings. We pulled the administrators together and began looking at that research that Mr. Johnson mentioned earlier. We really wanted to see what the effective best practices were out there and learn from others what had worked well for them and what hadn't worked for them, and begin to look at what would work best for us in those instances. Our administrators looked at some rubrics and did some self-evaluations of their schools to figure out exactly where they were with family engagement and what would make the most sense for their next steps. Once we had that together, then the next step was to build their family engagement teams. So the schools set out to build teams that would be a part of this family engagement pilot in their buildings. The teams were composed of school members, that were stakeholders, parents from their buildings, and community members as well. And so then we began to meet throughout the year in these family engagement teams. One of the first things that we did when we came together, then everyone on the team looked at those same rubrics and did an evaluation of where they felt the school was. So then their first step was to do that reflection piece. Where are we? What do we need? And then sit down and work together to develop a family engagement plan. So where are we right now? Where do we want to be at the end of the school year? And what are the specific steps that we're going to take to get there? So just a few highlights of that work. I don't have time to highlight too many, but a couple of the ones that I wanted to share with you this evening. Many of our schools did a parent survey at some point in that to really get more information from the parents to find out what they needed and how they would best want to engage with the schools. Rossview Elementary was one of those schools. And one area that they focused focused on this year was for their kindergarten kickoff. So getting the students, as soon as they're stepping foot into the building for the very first time, they really worked to revamp that process just a little bit and build it up a little bit more to engage families even better during that one instance. So anything from when they first stepped foot in the door, they had a signing time with the principal. So kind of like what our seniors do with academics or sports. They had a little signing event to sign and say, this is what I'm going to do with focusing and learning in the building, and had a picture with the principal. And they rotated through stations all that night with their parents to do learning. One of my favorites was when they went to the cafeteria. So it wasn't just involved around academics, but all of the processes and procedures that they would learn and engage in. So they got to go through the line in the cafeteria and get some milk and cookies, and then it became the parents' job to help them learn how to open a milk. Because if you've been to a kindergarten cafeteria at the beginning of school, you know what a challenge that is, right? All right, so More Magnet had a similar focus with wanting to engage with their new families who were coming into the building. One of the things that they had found was that sometimes parents weren't engaging with them because there were language barriers. And so one of the things that they did was to come up with a parent guardian representative and a student representative, so that when a student came to the building for the first time, that then that student representative could take the new student around and show them the buildings and the inner workings, but then that parent or guardian representative could be there to walk the parent through, answer questions about the school, and all of those sorts of things. So just build that relationship right off the bat from day one. Another example is from Kenwood Elementary. They worked really hard this school year to build a family resource room. They wanted their families to have a place to come and engage within the building, so that they have a place where they can come and get resources, where they can come and have a meeting. So those are just a few examples of some of the things that happened from that family engagement pilot work this year.
Good evening, board members. Glad to be here to share a little bit of data with you on some of the improved satisfaction numbers that we saw as a result of some of this work. Because that's really kind of what started these conversations that Mr. Johnson referenced a couple of years ago when Dr. Imperatrice and he started discussing parent and family engagement. It was really a data-driven conversation. And there were a couple of key things that as a cabinet and direct report group in early 2022 that we really saw in some of our parent and family survey data that were things that we wanted to address. One of the first big things that we noticed was that there was a gap between how well families felt like their schools communicated with them versus how well they felt like the district as a whole communicated with them. Of about 3 to 4 percentage points, where the district was coming in a little bit higher on our levels of agreement with that statement than the schools overall. And while they may not always be exactly the same, that was something that we wanted to try and close as much as possible to ensure, whether it's from the district or whether it's from the school level, that we're operating pretty evenly as a district. The other thing that we noticed in our data was that there was a wide level of variation across all of the schools in terms of the level of agreement that we saw from families that their schools communicated well with them. In some cases, a difference as high as 20 percentage points potentially. So that difference is something that we noted. Engagement is always going to look a little bit different across the levels. You will typically see a lot more engagement at the elementary level, for instance, compared to the high school level. There's always going to be some degree of difference in communication at those levels because as our students mature through the school system and they gain more independence, communication with parents begins to happen less and communication with students begins to happen more as they gain that independence and need to start working on their own through that system. However, we did want to ensure through this work that we could create as consistent an experience as possible for families across the district, whether they're students in high school, middle school, elementary school, no matter what, they're receiving communication that they need to feel informed and to have what they need to be successful. And so I'm going to share a couple of key data points with you. On the chart in front of you, you can see a couple of different things. So the yellow and blue lines that you see here are the goals that we set for ourselves when we engaged in this work. We set a goal for ourselves of 93% overall agreement that the district as a whole communicates well on our family and parent survey. And then the goal that we set for ourselves for my child's school overall, keeps me well informed, was 90%. And based on the most recent administration of our surveys, you can see that we met or exceeded both of those goals over the last couple of years. The district communicating as a whole, we saw 93% overall agreement on the most recent administration of our parent and family survey in the spring. And then for our schools overall, keeping families well informed, we saw agreement of 91%, which exceeded the goal that we set for ourselves. So always continuing to look at how we can keep improving on those areas, but we were glad to see that we did meet those goals. And we have actually, for our strategic work for next year, as we continue promoting family engagement opportunities in schools, we are setting these goals a little bit higher for ourselves for next year. So we'll hopefully continue to see that increase on overall agreement from families. Another piece that I want to share with you are some of the differences that we saw in our schools that participated in the pilot that Ms. Smith mentioned, compared with our schools that did not participate in that pilot. As we've mentioned, family engagement was a focus for all of our schools this year. It's something that we challenged all of our schools during their principal retreat to really dig in on and ensure that they were getting families in the schools. So any engagement strategies were not exclusive to our schools that were in the pilot. However, we did want to know if there were some differences based on the fact that those schools were digging in a little bit deeper, were promoting some higher levels of engagement and support among their families. And what we saw when we look at data from the parent survey in the 2021 school year, which is really kind of where this conversation started, and we look all the way through our most recent administration this last spring, our pilot schools on average increased on schools communicating well at an average of about 3 percentage points compared with 1.4 percentage points for our non-pilot schools. So we did see a slightly stronger rate of increase among our pilot schools from when this work started, which was a great thing to see. But again, happy that that overall average continues to increase across our schools. The last big piece of data I want to share with you, and this is something that I was only able to just put together a couple of days ago. I mentioned to you that one of the other pieces of data that we were tracking as a metric to determine how successful we were was the variation at the school level. We want to continue to close that gap that we may see between the consistency of experiences that families indicate. And one of the ways we look at that is we look at our schools that tend to rank the highest on overall levels of agreement, that the school keeps them well informed, our top 5 that you see there. And then we look at our schools that tend to rank on the lower end of that spectrum, which are our bottom 5 schools that you see there. In 2022, we had a few schools, I believe it was 3 total, that came in at the high 70s of overall levels of agreement that they got from families, that the school communicates well with them. And the thing that I really want to draw your attention to are the differences between those green and blue lines. Because what we're seeing is that our schools that are on the higher end of the spectrum are tending to stay in the same place. They're staying at that high level of agreement. But our schools that are on the lower end of the spectrum are gaining a little bit more, which means that we're closing that gap in the way that we want to see. And those experiences across the district are getting a little bit more consistent. One of the things that I regret to see here is that we almost had every school ranking in the 80s. We were like 0.08 of a percentage point off from being able to bump that one school up into 80%. But we're going to get there next year. That's part of the goal. So that was another important piece of data that we were really happy to see. As we continue moving forward with this work, again, it's something that we've noticed in the data that are continuing to kind of push our conversations as we think about next year. One of the things that we're noticing is that there's a major difference between families feeling informed, which is one of the huge areas that we tracked this year, versus families feeling supported. And so we continue to ask ourselves as we think about the strategic work for next year and continuing to enhance these opportunities, how can we ensure that families not only have the information that they need, but also, as Mr. Johnson mentioned, have the knowledge and the support and the confidence to feel welcomed in that building and know that they've got what they need so that that child that is their whole heart can be supported to be as successful as he or she can possibly be. And when we look at how families tend to view support in our parent and family survey, when we look at the comments,
a lot of it has to do with that daily or near daily interaction with the teacher. It has to do with that really close one-to-one relationship and kind of that two-way communication about what's going on in class. The information from schools is incredibly important. We saw that this last year. The information, of course, from the district is something that we really prioritize to ensure that families have what they need. But one of the things that we're really looking at next year is how do we continue to ensure that teachers are supported in creating that kind of relationship and doing that daily or near daily or weekly communication so that families feel like they know where their child is and they feel supported. And Mr. Johnson's going to share some of what that's going to look like in the coming months. The other thing we're going to be spending some time looking at is not only creating that supportive relationship from the parent perspective, but also looking at, through some of our upbeat data on the employee side, what that relationship looks like at the teacher level. Are we creating supportive school communities where parents not only feel supported, but teachers also feel that their parents have confidence in them, that their parents are partners with them, that they work together to ensure the success of that child. And those are some things that we're also going to continue to look at into next year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Johnson again to go over next steps.
Thank you, Ms. Vincent. One thing we failed to put in this report that is also important to talk about is we used the Tennessee Department of Education's family-friendly school audit checklist, which is available on their website. It's a great tool, and we actually did audits at all of our schools and provided them with individualized reports to give them some, tell them what they were doing really successfully, but also give them some opportunities for refinement. So that has helped to drive this work too. And I kind of can't believe we forgot to put that on here because that was a lot of work. All right, so talking about the next steps. So I want to start, this is a slide on its own, talking about Parent Square. So all of our stakeholders have already received the communication in our May update that we were moving forward with Parent Square. I'm really excited about this transition. It's going to open up some doors that we did not have with School Messenger. And so I just want to hit a few of those highlights. One, and I might even get some applause on this one from parents and guardians, is parents and guardians will get to choose how and when they will receive communications. So right now, we rely on School Messenger, which basically has 3 modalities, and you kind of have to click 1 or 3 and it just sends. You don't get to choose. So with Parent Square, if I'm a busy parent, I've got kids at 3 different schools, I can choose to get it all in a digest at 6 p.m. So instead of getting notifications all throughout the day, I will get it in a digest. I will get to choose, do I want to receive text messages and emails and phone calls, or do I just want to receive text messages? And then it will link me to the app that has all of the information. So it's important to us, again, we talked about parents and guardians being busy, it's important to us to provide them with a communication tool that meets their needs. The other thing that I'm really excited about that we severely lack in right now is our ability to translate communications. So School Messenger very much lacks some of the things that we needed to do. Parent Square is going to allow us to send a parent or guardian can choose their preferred language. Over 100 languages will be supported by this application. When we send a communication in English, it will automatically translate to the parent or guardian's preferred language. In addition to the mass communications, if I'm a teacher or a principal and I need to just send something really quick, hey, Jean forgot her book bag at school, I can send a direct message in English, the parent receives it in their preferred language, replies in their preferred language, and translates it back to me in English. So real-time, two-way communication translation. The other big thing that Parent Square will allow us to do that we don't have with School Messenger is opening up access for teachers to be able to use it for mass notifications in their classroom. So we talked about kind of the discrepancy between the school level and the district level. Best practices show parents and guardians really want to hear from the district maybe once a month, unless there's snow, then they want to hear immediately, but usually about once a month. From their school-based administrators about once a week, they want to hear from the teacher about daily. And so we're going to be providing a tool that will make that a lot easier for teachers. Now I do want to acknowledge that many of our teachers, hundreds of our teachers have filled that gap already with things like Remind and Class Dojo, and we appreciate that they have made that effort. But this will be an opportunity, the first time that this district has provided a platform for teachers. So we're really excited about it. Right now, we're still working with a couple of things with the data integration, but our principals have been trained. They're actually now practicing this week as we speak, and then we hope to be able to roll out to all parents and guardians and the rest of our staff definitely by the end of June. A couple other quick things, just some next steps. So we're going to continue enhancing our communication engagement training and resources for school-based employees. All the things we just talked about are we're going to continue to focus on the next year, enhancing those. Promoting the family engagement pilot models and resources across the district. So the items that Ms. Smith talked to you about, taking those learnings from those 11 schools and providing to all 46 schools and sharing some best practices so they can also dig deeper into family and parent engagement. Jessica already talked about it, but accelerating our embedded business account integration. Our goal is 100%. So we are taking our time with that, not overwhelming, but our goal is to have 100% of schools with active, engaging social media. And then continuing and fostering and promoting meaningful family and parent engagement. So we'll continue that work, and I'll be honest with you, that is the work of public education that will continue into infinity and beyond. It's something we've always got to work at, but having that intentional effort now to make sure that folks have the training. And the last thing I want to mention is we'll talk more about this next year. We also have an additional strategic work goal around family engagement, and this is around engaging parents and guardians before they ever step foot in CMCSS schools. So a Birth to 5 initiative in collaboration with community partners, from our medical facilities when baby is first born, to our pediatricians, to our churches, to our businesses, everyone working together to give parents and guardians of those birth to 5 the resources and tools they need to support good literacy instruction at home so they're ready before they ever step foot in kindergarten. So we're going to talk more about that. That's another collaboration with the instruction curriculum department, but I think we try to cover everything. Any questions?
I just want to make sure my mic works. Practice on it a little bit. I just like to say that your department and the people standing there behind you, I mean, you're so professional, so knowledgeable, and you have the experience, and it's just an asset to CMCSS to be able to have excellent communication department like you all are. So I want to thank you.
It's really all that, but thank you.
Well, I was going to say something. I don't know how. I was going to say something. I don't know how it works with that thorn with 3 beautiful roses there. But you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, Mr. Nelson?
Yes, you guys do yeoman's work, and it's very, very good. I'm very impressed with it. Communication has changed, and we have to change with it to stay valuable and important to the community. And I like all the programs that you have for engagement with the families and the community and the parents. Very important. I have one question. On the online portal that you guys use, do you have anything like specifically designated for like the second graders who are going into 3rd grade this year to help them focus on specific reading efforts?
Yes, so that's a really great question. And I know with Dr. Shanda Dowdy kind of starting her new role, we've already kind of had a few conversations about this. And it's, we have right now, it's the Parent Academic Resources Hub. And so on that hub, you can go there and you can see what students are learning anytime. With that said, it's complicated, and we understand that. Education, as you said, has changed a lot. The standards are more rigorous. And so we're going to be working and partnering with the instruction and curriculum department on breaking those things down, creating video series, kind of creating it to where it's more family friendly to kind of understand what those pieces are. But absolutely, right now you can go to our Parent Academic Resources Hub and you can click for each grade level and you can see exactly what they're learning if you wanted to start that work at home and kind of helping students to be on grade level. Yes, sir.
Mr. Garland, I see your line.
Yeah. I have a question. I was speaking to an elderly gentleman last week, and he was concerned that we do a lot reaching out to the families and the guardians and the people that actually have children in the school system currently. But he was wondering if there was anything that CMCS is doing to try to reach to their supporters who used to have children in the system that really want to be involved in what it is that we do.
Yes, sir, and that's a really great question, and I totally agree with you. We've got to have everybody engaged in education. You know, it's simple to say, please check out our social media media, check our website. And I know two different generations aren't necessarily in the same places, but that's also where it's important. We've got great relationships with our media partners. Chris Smith is here. Sherry's usually here, John's here tonight, where they're helping to tell our stories too, to get out there. But the biggest thing that I will say too is I encourage those who don't have students in the district anymore or retired, please reach out to a school you might be connected with. And our schools all the time are looking for volunteers, or looking for, they have different programs, and that's a really good way to get engaged and to stay kind of in tune with what's going on. But I will admit, we've got to continue working at trying to get the information out as much as we can. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I got a couple questions and a couple comments. That's the first time I'm talking this. How's the parent advisory council members chosen?
So those are, each school administration team chooses them. That's the simple answer. They choose them differently though. Sometimes they have a call for volunteers. Sometimes, I know in some schools, basically if you're the PTO president, you sometimes kind of get asked to do that as well. So each principal decides, but how they decide is kind of different. I do encourage if someone's interested in serving on the parent advisory council to just talk to their building administrator and express that interest and kind of work through that process there.
Okay.
And I do want to mention, I'm sorry to interrupt, the Parent Advisory Council, although it is kind of limited to one representative per school, their minutes and notes and things like that are up on the website, so any parent can kind of stay engaged with what's going on. Anything else you want to add, Dr. Huff?
No, that's it.
Very awesome. Social media, do we know how many schools don't have accounts yet?
So Jessica and I were just talking about this the other day and saying we need to re-audit. Well, when I started in this position, we only had 19 schools with an active Facebook page. We're closer up into, I would say, the 30s.
Easily. I think there's maybe a handful, and those that are in that handful, it's their PTO that actually handles their page. So essentially, virtually almost every school has a page, but again, there's a variation in how often they're posting, and that's where we're really digging into and making sure it's a consistent and quality post that's getting put up too.
One of the biggest barriers, and I get it, is just kind of a fear. A fear of our administrators or the school staff of posting things, or if I post the wrong thing. So a lot of it, especially what Jessica does, is just building their confidence, giving the tools, letting know how to best use it. But it's one thing we haven't necessarily pushed too hard. More of the encouragement that this year our goal is to reach that 100%. And we really think, especially with the new tools with Meta, us supporting them will help with that process.
Yeah, I follow a lot of the schools, and I really enjoy seeing the content, you see the pictures. It's just great. East Montgomery doesn't have one, let you know, so put them on your radar.
Yes, they're one of the ones that their PTO runs.
So with them being a business manager, I know what that means. That them being a business manager, I don't know this answer, does that give you the ability to scrub the content on the pages if something?
Yes, we have basically super admin, if you want to call it that, privileges, so we can, we can take things off. The other thing that it helps us with, which this is one of the biggest problems we had for years in this organization, is there be a principal that would have the account set up and they move to another school and they forget their password or whatever, they leave the district, and then there'd be a site hanging out here and we couldn't access it. So it gives us, that'll never be a problem anymore. And in case of an emergency, it also gives us access to be able to push things out. The other thing is, even in not an emergency, if we have like a snow closing, we were able to push that out to everybody.
Gotcha. And is there, I have as a manager, I have the ability to see a lot of the sites myself. Does that give you, is there any, how should I say this, any platform which you can see like all the schools like at once, different comments and stuff where you can kind of see and catch things ahead of time?
Yes, we are able to do that. Most of our schools, we kind of encourage to have not the messaging, because we want to encourage them to get back to like the phone or email, just so we can kind of keep that for a public record standpoint. But we are able to see comments and be able to help them and support them with that. We don't really have the staff to kind of run the 46 different sites, so we have to really rely on them to do that. But yes, sir, we do. Now I will say that Jessica and I scratch our heads. Meta just changed about a week ago, and we're having a tough time finding where new things are, but ultimately it does help a lot.
Yeah. Family engagement, I love that. Just want to let you guys know that. Absolutely love that. Great numbers, 93%, 91%. Communicating, I love that. And Parent Square,
It sounds amazing. I've been at this meeting where I'm getting a text and email, phone call all at the same time. I'm like, okay. So I love being able to control that. It's great.
I'm a little bit afraid of this now, Mr. Mayberry. Thank you for such an excellent presentation, and I'm so happy that you're making the public more aware of all the programs that we are embracing every year. But there was a disturbing statement you made. Did you say we had over 1,000 students homeless? We don't have children sleeping on bridges, do we?
Well, no, so with the McKinney Mental Act, the definition of homelessness is varied. So it could be something like doubled up, so maybe it's a family that's living with another family. It could be that you don't have a permit, so maybe you're staying at a hotel for some time. But certainly within the definition, there could be students who are living in cars or living, not in a domicile that is adequate. With that said, I do want to clarify that the numbers change quite frequently because, especially with the family and transitions team and community support, they're able to find them. So the numbers fluctuate. We have been as high as close to 1,000. I don't know the current number now. I think we had gotten as low as maybe 600 this past year, but it certainly fluctuates.
I'm glad to see that we're going to focus on birth 5-year-old or pre-kindergarten, because I believe that's going to make a significant impact on the readers. We have a lot of children that have not been exposed to literacy, and so I believe that for us to focus on that aspect is going to help overall.
We certainly appreciate your report. Appreciate the hard work that y'all and your team have done to bring this, launch this, get our parents more involved and better informed. This next item on the agenda is comments. Polk County School Liaison Officer.
Dr. Mayor and Board. Even though it's summer, Mrs. Gary and I are still very busy. During the month of June, this month, Montgomery County School Counselors, they invited us to present at their Engage training conference on the 7th. And we briefed the counselors on youth sponsorship, the program that the Army has for our youth, moving from other schools and other parts of the country. And we're also briefing surrounding counties with military connected children about all the other programs and initiatives that we have from the garrison. And we just again like to thank the counselors for inviting us to present. We're very happy to do so.
Thank you for all that you do. CMCA representative.
Good evening, everyone. This is my last night to present as the CMCA president. So, somebody's walking, maybe they're running. Y'all know I'm an emotional person, so there may be a tear or two, but they're happy, very, very happy tears. I've got a lot of memories. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I remember when I first started at Northwest High School, we used to go and do magic shows at elementary schools and collect non-perishable food items as admission and give them to food banks and everything. And we were invited to do a magic show at the school board. And of course it was chemistry, but it was a big hoot, and we did it just right there on a couple of tables. And quite a few of those former Northwest students are still in this district now as educators. In the instruction room on the second floor, sitting room, I was honored with the Triple Nickel Parachute Infantry Division Award. And the reason I remember that is because he said he talked to the students at an event that we had, and they all loved me because I popped popcorn for them. And I thought, okay, But we were cleaning up a nature area in Northwest. I've been up here with former students and who've received points of pride for being scientific researchers, very successful students. And so this board has meant a lot to me, even with changing faces. The first time in 2008 when I was in front of this board, as a CMCSS representative, Ted Gilchrist was introducing the collective bargaining team members, and that's been some time ago. So lots of memories, but I digress. And I don't often speak in education needs. If you know me, I just kind of have plain, straightforward speaking, and I don't speak in education needs for several reasons. I want everybody that hears me to understand what I'm saying, and sometimes, unless you're an educator, you're the only person that knows what you're saying. And it seems like in this world of education, as soon as I get used to one term, somebody else comes out with another term that's a synonym that means the same thing, so I get lost. And then finally, I believe that actions speak a lot louder than words. I believe if you can demonstrate that you can do something, then that is a whole lot better than if you can describe it in words. But tonight I am going to speak in education needs, and I want to talk about transactional and transformational leadership. And in these days, we live in a material world. And in society in general, if we're not saying it, we're thinking it, what have you done for me lately? It is just the world that we live in. And it's what transactions have you performed? What is your currency? And it's day to day, it's in our personal lives, it's in our professional lives, and it's true in education as well. We are in education mandated with things that we have to perform transactions, testing, graduation rates, attendance. I mean, these are all things that are mandates for us that we have to do. And I think in this system we do them very, very well. But over the years, and probably 8 to 10 years in particularly, and listening to an awful lot of members, it has been a perception of many members, and just an observation on my part. I've not really collected any solid data. This is strictly qualitative. There seems to be a gap between educators who have direct currency to give that is immediate, and those DOC and TCAP, people that are directly involved, seniors and getting them graduated, senior teachers, and those that may be out in the periphery, whose currency may not be so readily seen at the surface. And like I said, it's just, perception are people's reality. And it just thinking and reflecting, these two terms, the next one is transformational leadership, just came to my mind from some reading, educational reading I was doing. And it just seems like we're so focused on transactions that we're forgetting about transforming. We want to transform students, but we need to transform our employees, teachers, and educators that work in the school system. And I'm sure you've already surmised that a transactional leader focuses on performance-related tasks and goals, which is not a bad thing. We all have to do it. But it's bad if things are not in balance. And I talked about balance last month. So the other type of leadership is transformational leader, and this type of leader is more concerned with elevating those around them. Elevating in terms of self-esteem, elevating their maturity, their ideals, which in turn makes them more focused on helping others achieve and helping themselves achieve. To me, a transformational leader in education is one who knows all under their charge have currency, maybe not immediate or can be easily seen. And those leaders think about the long game. They know that cultivating a team through transformation will lead to the biggest and best transformation of all, and that is educators who are truly dedicated to educating the whole child. educators who can produce those short-term transactions that we need and we have to have, but who are also going to produce students who are equipped with all the skills to be truly productive citizens in this world. And transformational leaders also produce educators who deliver on all cylinders. Dr. Ludevetter, you are the 5th director in the 17 years that I have been working for this school system. And that's about a little bit under 3.5 years per director. And we have accomplished great things in this system. But we need a leader who is steady and is going to be here for the long term. And I believe that is you. I truly, truly do. And I believe that one thing you told me in our very first meeting, that you wanted to make this school district the best for employees and the best for students. And you are the one to do it. We've come up with a 9.5% raise since January, and that is part of the equation. I think another part of the equation is bringing transformational leaders in buildings to make sure that all of our employees feel valued and that their currency is something that they want to be a part of or that they want to give. So like I said, this is it. So ladies and gentlemen of the board and everyone in this audience that I have worked with as a CMCEA leader over the past 17 years, it has truly been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. PEG representative.
Wow, how do you follow that? No. Good evening, Dr. Ludevetter and board members. Just also say, Parent Square sounds amazing. I can't wait till that gets rolled out because we were always scrambling this past year at our school. Okay, run get the EL teacher, go get the SLP teacher because she can speak Spanish and so and so can speak. So that's going to be great doing that. So communication definitely is the message, and that's what we need. So it's the last time we spoke, I shared with you Leader U Conference was coming up, and that was June 6th and 7th. What I forgot to share with you was Dr. Worthington was one of our presenters. So you really missed a blessing not seeing Dr. Worthington. If you think he retired, no, he's going 90 miles an hour, hair on fire. He presented an excellent presentation. He's involved now with the Cognia Group on transforming, turning around low-performing schools. So that was really interesting to watch. And also, just to piggyback on Dr. Johnson, CMCSS number 12, Parent Communication. I have discovered a book that I want to share with you. I'm not going to read it. This is a book that you get your jammies on, a cup of tea, hot coffee. But it's a great book because it applies not only to kindergarten, through high school, and adults. The message in here is so powerful. It's a book called Maybe, and it's written by Kobe Yamada. And it's won an award recently. So to rest and recharge this summer, this is light reading. It will take you maybe 3 minutes to read it. But it's a book that all teachers need to share with their students. You need to share with your children, your grandchildren, even adults. So I'd just like to read to you right quick the book jacket. In the beginning it says, "This is a story for everything you will do and everything you could be. It's for who you are right now, and it's for all the magical, unbounded potential you hold inside." And just one page of this book is just amazing because it says, maybe you have no idea just how good you really can be. And maybe you don't know how much you matter. But maybe, just maybe, the world has been waiting centuries for someone just like you. So I plan on sharing this with my students this coming school year because with special education students, those I work with, they don't always get to hear that message for how important they are and how much they matter. So again, along with parent engagement, community conversations, parent engagement, this is definitely a book that everybody needs to read. Thank you.
Thank you. County Commissioners, no comments. Board, I didn't tell them they couldn't make comments. I just got Chauncey and it's like that. So. Board members' comments. Ms. Barrett. Ms. Page.
I would like to thank everyone that have come up to this podium today, because I was talking to a young lady last week, talking about transformational leadership, how she has worked so hard in this district and want to be part of the leadership, but feel that she's going to have to leave CMCSS in order to get the job that she knows that she's qualified to serve in. Transformational leadership starts at the bottom. It's not just at the top. It's something that this district does well. But in saying that, we don't do enough to keep those that we train. We lose them to Tennessee. We lose them to Kentucky. We lose them to Illinois. We lose them to Mississippi. They go anywhere else in the nation and they can get the top jobs. Why? Dr. Luna, you train them here and they want to stay here, but they are not going to stay if we are not reaching for them to pull them up to the position that they need to be in. I really have enjoyed this session tonight, and it seemed like something special. I don't know what it is, but thank y'all for all that you do.
Mr. Patterson. Mr. Mayor.
Just want to thank all the board for holding everything down for me last week, or 2 weeks ago. I was at a summer camp, and at the next meeting I'll probably be at a summer camp again with some students. I want to give a shout out to the technology and operations team for all of our upgrades, and I know we're going through some fluctuations there. My sound sounds great right now, so that's great. Want to give a big shout out to Constance Brown. We love you. Thank you for all that you've done over the years. You've been great. So thank you very much. And I just want to make a public comment to the public that our public comments, everything that was there before, all the rules and everything is the same. We just moved it to a different day. So I just want to make sure the public knows that. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes, good evening. First of all, congratulations to the board and achieving your board distinction. Me being up close and personal and seeing how each and every one of you operate, I had no doubt that you would get it. I understand from various conferences that we've attended as board members that not every board achieves that board distinction. And so it's something for us to really be proud of and hang our hats on. And additionally, with that, since my time on the board, we've gone from not having public comments to having public comments. And I think that's been a huge improvement. You know, I'm a strong believer in the First Amendment and that, you know, citizens have the right to redress their government on issues that they may have. And, you know, as board members, I know all the board, if you can't talk to them at the meeting, you can give them a call and they will talk to you and have a discussion on whatever you would like to have a discussion on. So, you know, I just want to make sure that we keep that in perspective, because we are available to the public. We are public servants at the end of the day, okay? Also, I just want to say to Ms. Constance Brown, tell you, I love the name Constance because it just seems like it's always something going forward and a force to be reckoned with. I want to thank you for having me come to the CMCSS meeting and being able to talk to teachers and getting an unadulterated opinion of what needs to happen, what needs to change there. You know, I like to catch teachers out in the wild, out at the mall or in Walmart or whatever, but having that group of teachers there pour out exactly what their frustrations were was eye-opening and enlightening. I just want to thank you for that, and that concludes my comments for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Directors, schools report.
Good evening, board members. Even though the traditional calendar shows we are out for summer, the work and preparation continue across the district for students. Our summer learning camps are off to a great start and will continue to run through July 20th. Last week, a STEM summer camp was held at 2 different locations for 4th graders called Camp Invention. That was a huge success. Activities were designed around science, technology, engineering, and math that were truly engaging for the campers. Also, a huge shout out to the teams with current busy seasons, such as our building custodians, our facilities, our landscaping crews, and our technology team, who go above and beyond during the summer months to ensure that we are prepared for students in August. I would also like to acknowledge Ms. Constance Brown and also say she is not leaving us in the district, so we're happy that she's continuing to work for us as an educator. And thank you for what you do at TCAP. Mr. Griffey, this concludes my report for the evening.
Thank you, Dr. Rovak. That concludes the business on our agenda. This meeting is adjourned.